one of the other factors here in this case that I personally find very interesting is what exactly is going on with all of these multiple accusers and this coordination and stuff. It's not a coincidence that several of them, came forward and claimed that they had repressed their memories and then recovered these memories during these group sessions that they got together and filmed for the documentary. But it's not necessarily clear to me how much that is just a fabrication, just a sheer, making it up for purposes of, defeating a statute of limitations argument for their claims.
You're not sure that what is a fabrication? I'm sorry.
The idea that
gotcha.
they suddenly recovered these memories in these group sessions. It's easy to look at that as, oh, well, that's just too convenient. You just made that up for your lawsuit. But then when you see somebody like Ashley Smithline Morgan, who, she appears to be so easily influenced by whoever is able to kind of get some authority, make an impression on her, that I wonder how much of this is potentially from their perspective, maybe a little bit legitimate, that, there's a lot of influence that a group can have. And there's been a lot of studies for, 20, 30 years now, maybe even longer, getting into 40 years, about memory and how it works and the ways that false memories can be deliberately implanted and ways that you can acquire influence over people. Drugs can be, a pretty powerful way of achieving that as well. Don't know what these girls were into, but Ashley's talking about like doing ket and things like that. And
yeah, that was a huge, I thought that was a huge thing just in terms of her credibility. My viewers know that I'm obviously very open-minded about substance use, and I've had, my struggles, but for her to concede that she was wasted on ketamine during a major interview, and that was the interview of The View that a number of us were just shocked about, how just completely out of it. She couldn't even get a sentence out at certain times. And so to me, we're dealing, I think this is kind of what you're saying, we're dealing with a number of women here who are just psychologically unhinged, and perhaps more susceptible to the implantation of false memories, especially if you've got people like Evan trying to recruit you and saying, oh, we've got this FBI letter, he's being investigated, all of this.
Yeah. And so that's what I think is going to be interesting to see unfold. Is I just have a suspicion we're going to start to get a sense of potentially some of these women being a little bit more vulnerable, and some of them being potentially a bit more predatory, and kind of who's going to fall on which side of those lines.
Do you feel like, as an attorney, you've seen a lot in your time in the profession, and do you feel like with this many women and this many unstable women, again, Ashley Morgan Smithline, I hate to bring this up, but she has been to rehab multiple times for eating disorders. Like when all of these allegations first surfaced, someone found a review that she had left for a clinic, for an eating disorder clinic, and she was dissing the clinic and said they did things to her against her will or whatever. Shocking, right? But she, she was conceding in that she had been to rehab multiple times for eating disorders, and we've got the drug thing and all of that. So here's my question: with this many unstable people in the mix, not just Evan and Ilma, but but all of these others, like, is this just kind of like a firecracker or a time bomb?
A house of cards.
Time bomb?
A house of cards, I believe, is the expression you're looking for. It is, that's kind of rule number one. Of course, as a lawyer, you don't advise people how to commit crimes, but you learn very quickly that the way to get away with it is don't involve anybody else. Okay. Do everything on your own, shut your mouth. because the more people that get involved, yes, the less control you have over what's going to happen down the road.
Especially with all of these women, I would think that we just have, this is not, I mean,
That's the
you know,
double-edged sword of a hoax like this,
it's like the
is that
Watergate break-in or something. Got all these loopy people involved.
yeah, you need women who are a little bit unhinged, a little bit vulnerable, like I said, susceptible to influence, in order to be able to pull this hoax off. But then to be able to maintain that
Yep.
control over them is a whole other challenge. And
Especially when
they
things
didn't
start to
go
get
the
rough.
full step of like making it an actual cult. If Evan had actually become a cult leader, maybe it
Well,
would have taken longer for some of this to fall apart. But
the irony of that, of course, as you know, is that Evan has a big podcast coming out in a couple of weeks, I believe, and she's going to be a guest on A Little Bit Culty, which is a very famous podcast about cults. And so apparently her next move is going to be to paint her as a victim of Brian Warner, Marilyn Manson's cult, and to try, I guess, I guess she's trying to get as much traction as she can from as many different angles as possible. But
she just has to continue to be victimized,
Yeah.
that's kind of how we see her struggling to get out of this trap that she has sprung on herself, is just continuing to push away the accountability and put it on somebody else, and attribute it all to brainwashing or whatever.
Yeah, and she's really trying to get public sympathy. She posted something on her Instagram a couple of days ago, a message saying that this is not a safe platform for survivors, and that she just wants to be left alone.
Of
And it's
course you
very
want to be left
similar.
alone now. You're getting called out on your
Exactly.
shit.
Exactly. It's very similar. I mean, so much of this is what I keep saying to the Johnny Depp supporters who are reluctant to come on board with this case, is like, there's just so many similarities. It's just that this case is just much more insane. So it really is, I made a kind of a facetious video a month or so ago, saying that this was the sequel to the John, if this were a movie, this would be like Aliens, a sequel to Alien. You have multiple monsters now. But I'm
And
serious. It really
arguably
is.
better than the original.
Exactly. Not arguably at all better. No, but seriously, it seems like an insane situation, but it really is just Amber Heard's situation, that scenario just amped up. And I have to wonder, if you're Sean Hawley at this point, what are your thoughts in general? Are you happy that you got this case because it's going to be so high profile, or is there a part of you that sees what happened with Elaine and you don't want to? I know she's not Elaine. I know she's better than Elaine, but she's got to have some trepidation about this, right? It's the whole can of worms that she's getting.
Yeah, I mean, it of course is hard to know what she's thinking. I've always kind of liked Sean Hawley. She seems to be pretty well grounded,
She's not Gloria Allred.
She's not Gloria Allred. She's dealt with high profile losing cases. I mean, Jesus, Lindsay Lohan, she had her, I mean, it was a massive train wreck period, she just couldn't keep her client from not torpedoing herself over and over and over again. So she has that experience with people that are difficult to manage. And I have to think, just based on, what we see and what Evan's reactions to the case unfolding have been, that Evan is a difficult to manage client. She doesn't have, I think, realistic expectations about what is going to happen here,
the situation she's put herself in,
what you are going to have to do, what the kind of risks are that you're facing. And so Sean Hawley is somebody who she's not worried about taking a high profile L. Sean Hawley, I think, has that attitude that, well, if she's going to take a loss, she's going to take a loss. She's still going to, be a fighter, because that's who she is. But I imagine that a lot of her struggle is really probably just trying to get Evan to see what is in her own self-interest and to internalize that, to not dig a deeper hole than she needs to be able to get out of this situation.
And I would imagine that with the kind of social media and media onslaught that Evan has been receiving, or and the kind of, I guess what I'm saying, I would imagine with the kind of criticism and bad publicity that Evan has been getting over the past weeks, she's got to be freaking out on her people, and not just on her PR people, but I would think freaking out on her attorney. There's got to be something you can do. You've got to be able to stop them from saying this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I would imagine there's lots of 3 a.m. phone calls or
And the answer is, honey, I'm a lawyer. I am not
Right.
a freaking magician. I can't wave my magic wand and make your text messages with Ilma go away. That's 100% on you. Welcome to accountability land.
So I'm just curious, is there anything that you have to say to the many Johnny Depp supporters who not only are not on board with Manson's innocence, but also are upset that those of us who supported Depp are now transferring that interest onto Manson, that it's somehow, some people see it as somehow inappropriate or improper that we are treating Manson the same way that we treated Depp. Do you have anything to say to any of those people?
I think it just speaks to a lot of the different motivations that people had for getting interested in and following the Johnny Depp case in the first place. Not everybody has the same motive with following it. My motivation is pretty simple. I'm an advocate of due process. I believe in innocent until proven guilty. I believe in following the evidence, not the accusation. And so these are things that did draw a lot of people to Johnny Depp's case, but not everybody. Johnny Depp is somebody who is very easy to like. It's very easy to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's very good looking, charismatic guy. He's had this very positive public image for most of his career. He's played these beloved characters. He's somebody that you want to believe is, actually a really good guy. You're very resistant to the idea that he's something different than that public image. And Marilyn Manson, of course, is very, very different. I have a little bit more of an affinity for Marilyn Manson myself because I am very accustomed to dealing with accusations against people who aren't necessarily that pretty. They don't come from the greatest backgrounds. They aren't the most educated. They aren't the most,
easy to like.
easy to like. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of them, I've represented tons of people that just have, a laundry list of bad behavior in their background. But it's a critical feature of our justice system that we try people not on their character. We try them on the strength of the accusation against them. And so this is a real marker, I think, that it's important to lay down in this case to me that a lot of the reaction I see from people who aren't really interested in the case, oh, Marilyn Manson is creepy, he's weird, he's gross, he probably did do all that stuff. And that's the mindset that I want to resist, because at that point, you're just dealing with rule by fiat. You're convicting people you don't like and, giving the benefit of the doubt to people that you do. But if we're going to have a legitimate, scientific truth finding approach to situations like this, we have to stay skeptical and we have to focus on what is the evidence that supports these accusations.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And I think, one of the things that I keep in mind these days, that's in my mind a lot, is that overused to the point of triteness now, but that overused but very compelling saying from the World War II. And was it Niemauer who said when they came for the socialists, when they came for the union workers, when they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Jew, right? And then when
Yeah.
they came for me, there was no one left to speak for me. Well, I think that it's real easy to look at someone like Marilyn Manson and say, oh, well, that would never happen to me. And it's like, yeah, but this part of what's happening to Manson is part of a a larger trend, as we've talked about in society. And I think that, and so, I think that it's very important that we care about innocence and evidence, like you said, even in cases where someone is not appealing, because who knows, one day it might be you or me. Thank you so much for being here. Check out Andrea's channel. I'll have it linked below as usual. Like and subscribe both of our channels. Check out my links, Patreon, PayPal below if you want to leave me a tip. And yeah, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.